bedroom here has got phones up front, and I actually left the office here to go give the order to prepare our aircraft to shoot down our own commercial airliners should they be, should they violate certain airspace rules or transponder rules.
Why did you walk in the other cabin to give that order?
I don't know. I can't remember. It just did. It's maybe it was one of those moments where I wanted to be alone.
Tough order.
It's a tough order. It's a tough one to give. It's just, it kind of, in retrospect, that order reminds us of how serious the moment was. When your country's under attack, and you're not sure if there's going to be another attack, you got to do everything you can to protect the American people. And the idea of ordering our own aircraft to shoot down our own aircraft was a tough call, but it was, I didn't hesitate. It was the right thing to do.
After that interview, Air Force One that day was flying to a forestry event in Oregon, and the president wore a suit for our interview, but to do the forestry event where he was going to describe a new national policy on forestry, he wanted to wear something a little more outdoorsy. It was going to be in the forest. So he went up into his stateroom from his office to his stateroom to change clothes. And so my team and I, we're all back in the president's office, and we're taking the lights down and getting the gear out of his office and all that sort of thing. And apparently, the president realized that there was something that he wanted to tell me that he forgot to mention. So he comes back in the office. Now, I have no idea what the President of the United States said to me in that moment, because he's not wearing a shirt. This is the kind of guy President Bush is. He's very casual around people, and he walks in, and I'm looking him straight in the eyes. And I'm not looking down, and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, the President's not wearing a shirt. I'm not looking down. The President's not wearing a shirt. I am not looking down. And the President finished his point, whatever it was, turned and walked back into his stateroom, and we all looked at each other and said, well, you don't see that every day. No earthly idea what he was trying to communicate to us in that moment. Now, an interesting story came up on 60 Minutes and I was so mad at my colleague Mike Wallace about it because it was just absolutely absurd. He did a story in the weeks after 9/11 about whether the United States would resort to torture in order to get information out of terrorists after this horrible thing that had happened to our country. And it just struck me as a ridiculous notion that we would never do that kind of thing. And yet we began to learn in the weeks and months, many months, the years after 9/11, we began to learn a little bit about waterboarding and what the CIA was doing in order to extract information from terrorists in those early days when we didn't know whether they were going to attack again. I had an opportunity to do the very first interview ever with George Tenet. George Tenet was the CIA director. He was the CIA director before 9/11, during 9/11, and after 9/11. He had never done an interview in his life. He had been the subject of an enormous amount of criticism over years, which he'd never been able to respond to because he believed that CIA directors should never do interviews, kind of like Chairman of the Federal Reserve. Well, we finally got Director Tenet to sit down with us, and one of the subjects that came up in that interview was the question of waterboarding and whether it was torture. Have a look at his first public comments on that subject. Next one, please. There it is. Let me see if that's it.
You know, the image that's been portrayed is we sat around the campfire and said, oh boy, now we go get to torture people. Well, we don't torture people. Let me say that again to you. We don't torture people. Okay?
Come on, George.
We don't torture people.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed.
We don't torture people.
Waterboarding.
We do not. I don't talk about techniques, and we don't torture people. Now listen to me. I want you to listen to me. So the context is it's post 9/11. I've got reports of nuclear weapons in New York City, apartment buildings that are going to be blown up, planes that are going to fly into airports all over again, plot lines that I don't know. I don't know what's going on inside the United States, and I'm struggling to find out where the next disaster is going to occur. Everybody forgets one central context of what we lived through. The palpable fear that we felt on the basis of the fact that there was so much we did not know. I know that this program has saved lives. I know we've disrupted plots.
But what you're essentially saying is some people need to be tortured.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that.
You're telling me that the enhanced interrogation...
I did not say that. We do not torture. Listen to me.
Well, you're
call it in the book
enhanced interrogation.
Well, that's what we call it.
That's a euphemism.
Well, I'm not having a semantic debate with you. I'm telling you what I believe.
Anybody ever die in the interrogation program?
No.
You're sure of that?
Yeah. In this program that you and I are talking about, no.
Have you ever seen any of these interrogations done?
No.
Didn't you feel like it was your responsibility to know what you were signing off on?
I'm not a voyeur. I understand what I was signing off on.
Lose any sleep over it?
Yeah, of course you do. Of course you lose sleep over it. You're on new territory, but that's not the point. What's this tension? So the tension is, I've just lived through 3,000 people dying. This is not a clinical exercise. Maybe for you guys it's a clinical exercise. Not for me. 3,000 people died. Friends died. Now I'm going to sit back and then everybody says, you idiots don't know how to connect the dots. You don't have imagination. You are unwilling to take risks to protect this country.
Let me ask the question this way. Why were enhanced interrogation techniques necessary?
Because these are people that will never, ever, ever tell you a thing. These are people who know who's responsible for the next terrorist attack. These are hardened people that would kill you and me 30 seconds after they got out of wherever they're being held and wouldn't blink an eyelash. You can sit there 5 years later and have this debate with me. All I'm asking you to do, walk a mile in my shoes when I'm dealing with these realities.
Reasonable people will disagree about this policy. We have only fairly recently learned that the waterboarding of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, of course, was the mastermind of 9/11. He's the guy who figured out how to do it, and he's the guy who got it done. He's now in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The waterboarding of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed turned up the name of the courier who we've been following for years to get Osama bin Laden. Worth it? Reasonable people will debate this for a very long time. You cannot debate George Tenet's passion when it comes to running the CIA in those days and what he believed was the right thing to do in the moments after 9/11. Now, I want to have enough time to take a few questions, and I think we've got 10 or 15 minutes left here in this hour. And so I want to be sure that the room has been set up for questions. I take it we're supposed to use these microphones right here on the left and the right, and I'd be really proud to take your questions. But before we do that, let me just tell you that what we're trying to do at CBS News every day is simply this: original reporting, unique insight into the news, and fairness. Fairness to everyone who is involved in a story. Those are the hallmarks of 60 Minutes and the hallmarks of the CBS Evening News. And I'll just ask you to remember one thing the next time you watch one of the broadcasts. Please remember, as we all do at CBS News every day, that every broadcast, every single day, somebody somewhere at CBS News risked their life to bring the news to the American people. It happens at other news organizations every day as well. We have the greatest journalism in the world. No one else comes close. No country comes close. One of the reasons we have the greatest journalism in the world is because we have the greatest journalism schools in the world. But one of the things that gives our country strength is the quality of the journalism that we can all watch on television for free or spend $1 for a newspaper to get the very best writers and reporters on the planet. And it is a great American luxury, I like to think, that we have so much great reporting at our fingertips every day. I sure want to thank you for this great opportunity. Our family has come to love Clemson University. I want to thank you for a great educational opportunity for my son, and thank you for allowing us to be part of your wonderful family here in South Carolina. Thank you very much indeed.